If you are watching this today, it may not be by coincidence. There is a deeper message connected to your path, and it carries a very specific energy tied to someone who has been thinking about you far more than you realize. This is not a casual connection, and it never really was. Even though life placed distance, timing issues, or circumstances that did not allow things to fully align, the bond itself did not dissolve. It stayed alive in the background, quietly shaping emotions, thoughts, and decisions on both sides. There is someone in your life, or someone strongly connected to your energy, who has not been able to fully move on from you. No matter how much they have tried to distract themselves, focus elsewhere, or convince themselves that they should continue forward without you, something within them keeps pulling their attention back. It is not just memory, it is not just nostalgia, it feels deeper than that. It is a persistent inner pull that they can no longer ignore or silence. For a long time, they believed distance or separation was simply part of life. They tried to accept that maybe the timing was wrong or that circumstances were too complicated, but what they did not expect was how consistently you would remain in their thoughts. Even in moments where they felt focused or busy, your presence would surface again in their mind. Not as a distraction they could easily brush off, but as something emotionally significant that kept resurfacing at unexpected times. Over time, this started to create an inner conflict within them. On one side, they attempted to continue their life in a practical, logical way, telling themselves that letting go would bring peace. But on the other side, their emotional world kept resisting that conclusion. The more they tried to suppress it, the more it returned. The more they tried to replace it, the more empty those replacements felt. And slowly, they began to understand that what they feel for you is not something that fades through avoidance. This realization did not come all at once. It built up gradually, through small emotional moments, reflections, and comparisons between what they experience now and what they felt with you. And somewhere in that process, they began to accept a truth they had been avoiding for a long time. Losing you completely is not something they can make peace with. Even the idea of a life where you are fully gone from it feels heavier than any temporary discomfort they are currently trying to avoid. Because of this, something inside them has started to shift. It is not just emotional anymore. It is turning into intention. A decision is forming, slowly but firmly, that remaining passive is no longer an option. They are beginning to consider taking real steps, not just thinking about you, not just feeling, but actually doing something that could change the situation between you. And this is where the intensity increases, because what they are considering is not small. It is not a casual message or a simple gesture. It represents a much bigger risk in their life. It could mean disruption to their current responsibilities, changes in their relationships, or even facing consequences from people around them who may not understand their choice. They are fully aware of that. They can see the potential fallout clearly. Yet even with that awareness, their priority is shifting. The emotional weight of staying away from you is beginning to feel heavier than the fear of change. They are starting to question whether continuing on their current path without addressing what they feel for you is something they can truly sustain, and the answer forming inside them is slowly leaning toward no. What is building now is courage mixed with urgency. Not reckless impulse, but a growing recognition that if they do nothing, they may continue living with regret and emotional restlessness. And for them, that has become harder to tolerate than the uncertainty of taking action. So they are beginning to prepare themselves internally for a decision that will affect multiple areas of their life. This is why their energy feels different lately, even if you have not spoken. There is a shift happening in how they perceive you, how they feel about distance, and how they view the possibility of reconnecting. You may not see the external action yet, but internally, something significant is moving toward change. And at the center of all of this is a simple truth they cannot escape anymore. Whatever they have tried to build without you does not fully feel complete. Something essential feels missing, and that missing piece keeps bringing them back to you again and again, no matter how far they try to go. So now they are standing at a point of decision. Stay in comfort and emotional distance, or take a risk that could reshape their entire direction just for the possibility of being with you. And more, their heart is leaning toward the second choice, because in their eyes, The possibility of finally being with you is worth far more than continuing to live in quiet, emotional resistance. What happens next depends on timing, courage, and whether they fully commit to what their feelings have already been trying to tell them for a long time. I truly hope, deep down, that you feel something similar on your side, because the energy surrounding this connection is not something that resolves overnight. It is not instant, and it is not meant to unfold in a rushed or forced way. What is developing between you carries layers of emotional complexity, and because of the nature of the circumstances that have been separating you, time itself becomes an important part of the process. Right now, what is being formed is not immediate union, but preparation. There are still inner adjustments that need to take place on the other side. There are decisions that must be made carefully, not impulsively. And there are real-life consequences connected to those decisions that cannot simply be ignored or avoided. This is why things may feel slow from your perspective, even though something meaningful is already in motion beneath the surface. The truth is, the space between you has never been empty. It has been active with reflection, realization, and emotional processing. But even with that inner awareness building, it does not automatically translate into immediate action. The timing of movement depends on clarity, courage, and the ability to handle what comes after the choice is made. That is why patience is not just suggested here, it becomes necessary for everything to unfold in a stable way. There is a reason the process is unfolding step by step. If everything were to happen too quickly, without proper grounding, the same issues that once created distance could easily return in another form, and that is something neither of you truly want. The deeper intention behind this situation is not just reunion, but a connection that can actually last, something that does not collapse under pressure or external influence. So at this stage, what is required is space. Space for alignment, space for internal decision-making, space for emotional clarity to fully settle in, because real change, the kind that actually holds weight, takes time to integrate into someone's life. It is not just about feelings becoming strong enough, but about life circumstances shifting in a way that can support those feelings without breaking everything around them. There is also an important message that seems to come through this kind of energy, and it is about timing. If you try to force answers, push for clarity too soon, or attempt to accelerate something that is still forming, you may unintentionally create resistance instead of movement. Not because the connection is wrong, but because the process itself has not reached its natural point of readiness yet. This is why the guidance around you, whether you interpret it spiritually or simply as inner intuition, keeps pointing toward patience. It is a reminder that not everything can be controlled through action. Some things only unfold correctly when they are allowed to develop in their own rhythm. And this situation is one of those. For now, there is nothing you need to chase or fix or accelerate. The most supportive thing you can do is allow space for everything to settle into place on its own. Let the emotional clarity on their side continue to build without interference. Let the practical decisions they need to make form naturally without pressure. And let the connection breathe instead of being forced into premature direction. Because behind the scenes, something is shifting, slowly, quietly, and with intention. The person connected to you is not in the same emotional state they were before. There is more awareness now, more reflection, and a deeper understanding of what they have been carrying internally. But awareness alone is not the final step. It still needs time to become action. That is why this period feels like waiting, even though it is actually a stage of preparation. The foundation is being set for something that requires stability, and stability cannot be rushed into existence. It is built gradually through experience, realization, and the courage to face change fully. What is important for you to understand is that distance right now does not necessarily mean disappearance. Silence does not always mean absence of feeling, and delay does not automatically mean denial of connection. In many cases like this, it simply means the process is still under construction, and anything forced too early could weaken what is trying to be built properly. So for now, allow things to unfold without resistance. Let life handle the timing in its own way. There is nothing you need to do to push it forward because what is meant for you in this situation is already being processed in its own time. Your role is not to interfere with the timing, but to remain steady while it develops. And when the right moment comes, when everything internally and externally aligns, there will be movement. It will not be random or unclear. It will be the result of everything building up to a point where it can no longer remain still. In a few months, as this process continues to unfold, there is a strong shift indicated in the energy surrounding this connection. Communication that has been delayed or uncertain begins to take form in a more direct way. What has been held back through hesitation starts to move toward expression, and what has been kept internal begins to find its way outward. But even then, the key remains the same, allowing it to happen naturally. Because what is arriving is not just contact, it is the beginning of a new phase that depends entirely on how carefully this transition is handled. And that is exactly why everything up to that point is being prepared with such care. For now, trust the timing that is unfolding. Let the process continue without interference, and allow what is meant to come together to do so in a way that can actually last, without being disrupted by haste or emotional pressure. They will eventually come forward and let you know what has been shifting in their life and how they have been slowly preparing themselves to be in a more stable and aligned position with you. These changes are not superficial. They are internal adjustments, choices being made with more awareness, and a growing willingness to take responsibility for what they truly feel. If things have felt uncertain for a while, understand that this phase is not without purpose. It is shaping both sides of this connection in ways that are not immediately visible. What is forming now is a kind of readiness, and readiness always takes time. It cannot be rushed, forced, or compressed into a shorter process without losing its stability. What is ahead is a period of noticeable change, not just in them, but also in the way you perceive this entire situation. There may be moments where things start to feel clearer, as if certain pieces are finally falling into place after a long period of confusion or emotional distance. These shifts often arrive quietly at first, before becoming more obvious over time. During this phase, it is important to stay grounded and open, not attached to urgency and not driven by the need for immediate answers, because what is unfolding is not meant to overwhelm you, but to guide you into a more stable understanding of where this connection is actually heading. Sometimes life rearranges things slowly so that when the change arrives, it does not collapse under pressure. There is also a reminder here about trust. Trust in timing, trust in the process, and trust in the fact that not everything has to be understood instantly in order to be meaningful. When something is aligned, it does not require force to stay connected. It moves toward you naturally when the conditions are right. And as this unfolds, you may begin to notice a shift in your own inner state as well. Less questioning, less emotional turbulence, and more acceptance of what is developing in its own rhythm. This does not mean giving up on hope, but rather releasing the need to control how and when things should happen. In moments like this, clarity often comes in layers. First emotionally, then mentally, and finally through real-life action. What is currently unseen is still in motion, even if it has not yet reached a point where it is fully visible in your external reality. That is why patience becomes not just a waiting period, but a space where alignment is quietly forming. There is no need to chase signs or look for constant confirmation. What is meant to connect will become clear in its own way, without needing to be forced or interpreted through urgency. When the time is right, understanding will arrive without confusion attached to it. For now, allow things to unfold naturally. Let the process complete itself without interference. The changes that are being made on their side are part of a larger adjustment that will eventually reflect outward in a more direct way. And when that happens, you will not need to guess or question it. It will be clear through actions, not assumptions. What matters most at this stage is maintaining emotional balance and allowing space for everything to settle into its proper place. Because when something is truly forming into alignment, it does not need pressure to become real. It only needs time to mature into its final form. And as this chapter continues to unfold, it is important to understand something deeper beneath the surface of what you are feeling right now. Not everything meaningful in life arrives with clarity at the beginning. In fact, most things that are truly aligned with your emotional growth begin in a way that feels uncertain, quiet, and sometimes even confusing. There is often no clear label in the early stages, no guarantee written in advance, and no immediate confirmation that what you are sensing is real or lasting. Yet, that does not make it less significant. Sometimes the most important connections do not announce themselves loudly. They reveal themselves slowly, layer by layer, through time, presence, and emotional consistency. What develops in silence often carries more truth than what begins with intensity. Because intensity can be created by emotion, by curiosity, or even by temporary emotional states. But steadiness is different. Steadiness is not created in a moment. It is revealed through moments. It shows itself in how someone returns, how they stay emotionally present even when things are not exciting, and how they continue to choose awareness instead of avoidance. This is why patience is not just waiting, it is observation. It is allowing reality to show you what words alone cannot fully explain. There are connections that grow in cycles, where understanding deepens gradually instead of all at once. At times it may feel like distance is present, but that distance is not always absence. Sometimes it is space for reflection, space for emotional processing, and space for each person to become more honest with themselves before they can be fully honest with each other. Growth in relationships does not always move in a straight line. It often moves in waves, closer, then quieter, then clearer again. And within those waves, something important is being shaped beneath the surface. When a connection is real in a deeper sense, it does not rely on urgency to survive. It does not need constant pressure to remain alive. Instead, it holds a kind of quiet continuity, even when things are not fully expressed. There may be moments of silence, but not emotional disappearance. There may be reflection, but not complete disconnection. And within that difference lies an important distinction between confusion and transformation. Confusion drains you. Transformation may challenge you, but it also brings gradual clarity, even if you do not see it immediately. It is also important to recognize your own emotional state within this process. Patience is not about ignoring your feelings or suppressing your need for clarity. It is about not forcing answers before they are ready to exist in a stable form. When you rush emotional truth, you often end up with partial understanding or with conclusions shaped more by fear than by reality. But when you allow time to do its work, you begin to see patterns more clearly. You begin to notice consistency or lack of it without needing to interpret every moment as final. At the same time, staying open does not mean staying stuck. Openness is not emotional dependency. Openness is the ability to observe without controlling, to feel without losing yourself, and to care without abandoning your own peace. There is a quiet strength in remaining emotionally available while still maintaining inner balance. That balance is what prevents you from falling into extremes, either over-attaching to potential or disconnecting out of fear. And as this process continues, clarity often comes in subtle ways. It does not always arrive as a dramatic realization or a sudden conversation. Sometimes it comes through repetition, how someone consistently shows up over time. Sometimes it comes through contrast, what they say versus what they actually do. And sometimes it comes through your own emotional evolution, as you begin to notice that your patience is either being met with growth or with stagnation. In that awareness, you begin to understand what direction things are truly moving in. You may also find that your perception of time changes during this kind of emotional experience. Moments that feel uncertain can seem longer than they are, while moments of connection can feel brief but impactful. This distortion is natural when emotions are involved, but over time, when you step back slightly, you begin to see a broader pattern. You begin to understand that what is meant to develop will not require you to constantly question your worth, your place, or your emotional stability within it. Because real connection, when it is forming in a healthy direction, does not repeatedly leave you in doubt about whether you are wanted or valued. It may still be developing, it may still be unfolding, but it does not consistently erase your sense of emotional safety. Instead, it gradually builds it, slowly, quietly, sometimes imperfectly, but still in a direction that feels more grounded than unstable. And this is where patience becomes something more powerful than waiting. It becomes trust in timing, but also trust in yourself. Trust that you are capable of recognizing what aligns with your emotional truth and what does not. Trust that you do not need to chase clarity from situations that are meant to reveal themselves naturally. And trust that whatever is genuinely connected to your life will not require you to abandon your inner peace in order to hold on to it. So stay open, but stay aware. Stay patient, but stay grounded. Allow life to unfold without forcing it into a shape that feels unnatural or rushed. Because what is truly meant for you in this situation will not disappear, because you gave it space. And it will not become real simply because you pushed for it too early. It will become real in its own time, when both sides are able to meet each other with clarity, readiness, and emotional presence that can actually sustain what is being formed. And when that moment arrives, it will not feel confusing in the same way. It will not feel like constant guessing or emotional instability. Instead, it will feel clearer. Not perfect, not without challenges, but more grounded, more honest, and more aligned with the kind of connection that does not require you to shrink, chase, or question your place within it. Until then, what matters most is that you continue returning to your own center. Because no matter how this connection develops, your emotional balance, your clarity, and your peace are not things that should be dependent on uncertainty. They are what allow you to move through this experience with awareness instead of confusion, with patience instead of urgency, and with self-respect instead of emotional overextension.